In this video I'm going to show you how to parallel two abutments. Some of the instances you might want to parallel two abutments would be splinted implant restorations or possibly a bridge over two implant custom abutments. So what we're going to do here for the purposes of this example, it would hold true if I did the biogeneric individual and the multi-layer function, which would mean I design the crowns first and then I split them into abutment and the crown. Even if I'm doing the bridge, that's technically what I probably would do more often than not. I would just design two individual crowns, split them just to make the abutments, and then of course the way the software stands now, you would have to go ahead and rescan them for your splinted restorations or your bridge. But for the purposes of this example, we're just going to make the abutments. So we'll choose abutment, framework, tooth number 13, tooth number 14. We'll select the implant type. So whatever your implant type is, go ahead and select it here. Select the material. Since we're only doing abutments and we're not doing the multi-layer function, it's just going to simply be Sirona Mesio. We'll hit OK, and we'll move on to the model. Actually, let me back up to scan. So as far as the scans that I'll take, unless I'm doing a biocopy, I'm going to take the 4 scans every single time, which will be gingival mask, buccal, the upper jaw, which in this case is my actual scan bodies, and the lower jaw. So make sure you have all 4 of those scans whenever you're doing an abutment. We'll go to the model phase, and typically when I go to the model phase, I'm going to always back up. You know, these models were previously articulated, so generally you'll start here. But I like to edit the model and check the gingiva mask especially. So this has already been edited, so let's go ahead and reset the model. And you can see what it was like originally. I actually, in this particular case, used these final custom abutments as kind of healing abutments to make sure the tissue shrinked right up against the final abutments. Sometimes you may have to go back and re-prep depending on the healing. In this case, I did not. So, but if you have this really rough tissue, if it's not fully healed, you can go ahead and take your smooth function and just very carefully smooth off some of that tissue. Okay, it's going to really help your initial proposals when you don't have such rough tissue to draw your bottom line or margin on. Okay, so after I edited the model there, we'll go ahead and move forward. The first step, you see 14's highlighted. We're going to go ahead and we're going to trim. Just like I want to go ahead and do these steps just like I normally would if I'm doing one. Then I'm going to click on tooth number 13. I'm going to actually trim both of these restorations. Just keep your technique consistent and you'll be much better off. We'll stay on 13. We'll click on the scan body head. It's going to bring up the gingiva mask. Go ahead and draw the margin on your gingiva. Typically try to get it somewhere near the crest of the gingiva. Okay, let's go ahead and do the same thing on tooth number 14. We need to go ahead and click on the scan body head, redraw the margin on the crest of the tissue, and we'll go ahead and move forward. Now if you'll notice in these images, the red dotted line signifies the long axis of the implant. When I go to define restoration axis, the yellow arrow defines the long axis of where your custom abutment is going to be. So you can see tooth number 14 is activated. I can rotate up to 20 degrees. But since in this particular case we're going to go ahead and split together tooth number 13 and 14, I want to go ahead and link these two together at this define restoration axis step so we can go ahead and make sure they're parallel for, in this case, 2 splinted restorations, or if it was a bridge, you could do it in bridge mode and make a 3-unit bridge. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click Link Options. We want to group these together. They're obviously not symmetrical, so we're going to group these together. And then we'll go ahead and we'll click on tooth number 13. You see tooth number 14 is already in the green handcuffs. We'll click on tooth number 13, and that's going to bring them both up, and they're actually both going to be completely parallel. Meaning if I move this little bullseye, they're both going to move at the same time. So what I do in these scenarios is I'll go ahead and I'll look to make sure they're parallel from the buccal viewpoint. Then we'll also go make sure they're parallel from the occlusal. But really the most important thing that you want to realize when doing this is you want to bring up the opposing dentition. So let's go bring display objects, bring up the lower jaw, and you want to see how the bite is. So knowing that if I want to get these teeth in the correct plane, if I put my custom abutments on that buccal lingual access, it's going to be very difficult to get these teeth correctly. So we're going to have to bring these back to the lingual, and then again straighten them from the buccal. Somewhere in there is what it's going to take to get custom abutments at the right angulation to make my final restorations acceptable. So once you're done doing that, we'll hit OK. We'll hit the arrow. Our parameters are going to come up. We'll keep the gingival depth at 0. Gingival placement pressure, I always tend to go somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 to start. Shoulder width, we're definitely going to make that low. I'm going to go all the way down to 500. And you hit OK, and you'll get your initial proposals on both. And from there you can go ahead to the typical processes of correcting both of these implants. And tooth number 14 is obviously active. And then you'd have to go to tooth number 13 and correct them both. Now a second way that you can do this, because sometimes just making the abutments on their own can be a bit difficult, we'll go to administration phase. We're going to edit this restoration. We're going to choose abutment, biogeneric individual, multi-layer, and click on the 2 teeth. We're going to start with tooth number 14. Now we already have everything selected. We just need to choose the veneering structure, which of course is going to be Emax. We'll hit OK. Now we can go to tooth number 13, edit the restoration, choose biogeneric individual, multi-layer, click on that. You're always going to know you did it correctly when veneering structure comes up. Ivoclar, Emax, and hit OK. Now again, what this is going to do is you'll notice that you actually didn't lose any of the margination, you didn't lose any of the custom access, so everything that you did in the model phase, everything that you did in the edit model phase all stands. You actually have your design tab lit up. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to click on design, and it's just going to bring you back to your parameters. So now whatever your parameters are, you can go ahead and switch these up. Again, I'm going to switch up my gingival placement pressure, shoulder width. I like having very low. I know that angulation is going to cause me problems. And whatever your crown parameters will be. Again, we'll do the same for tooth number 14. Click on design. Edit everything correctly. We'll hit OK. And now we're going to get our biogeneric proposals. And here are our initial biogeneric proposals. Obviously a little bit of work to do. You guys know how to handle this. But the nice thing about this now is I'll be able to design these teeth on tooth number 13 and 14, design it to the opposing to make sure everything is correct. Once it's correct, I'll be able to split these into the custom abutments that will be used for my final splinted restorations, or bridge if it was a 3-unit bridge. And once you have everything designed, you would just actually mill out the custom abutments, and we'll go. And in the case of a bridge or a splinted unit, you'd have to re-image those to make the crowns over the top either splinted or in bridge mode. So hopefully that helps you understand the different options that you have to go ahead and link together to parallel abutments for the cases of splinted restorations or Emax bridges or whatever bridge you're going to do.